then we move on to the Pacific Championship Season 2. So, to give a bit of background to this, here is the Pacific Championship Season 1. So, in Season 1, inaugural Pacific Championship, you have a range of teams from all over kind of Southeast Asia and the Pacific. Taiwan, you have a team from Australia, another team from Taiwan. In fact, you've got another one there, but Thailand, Japan, Hong Kong. Although the Hong Kong team, I don't think is actually from Hong Kong, all of them. Most of them are from Taiwan. Anyway, Blank looked like they were the best coming into it at the beginning. Flash Wolves managed to adapt. The meta changes. Flash Wolves are definitely on top. Look like they're a tier above everybody. Well, a tier above Blank. And Blank were kind of close with AHQ and Hong Kong Attitude when it got towards the end of the season. Match Esports looked okay. Fireball became Mega Thunder, but it was Flash Wolves who were on top. They competed at the World Cup, and people were not particularly impressed. They got 3-1'd by Team USA, I want to say, and 3-0'd by Team UK, I think. It was not the best showing from Flash Wolves, but they didn't look like they were performing at their peak as well. They looked like they were really off their game at the World Cup. So when you watch them in the Pacific Championship, this season there is a completely new contender because there is now a Korean team in there called Ardiont. And Ardiont is the former Mighty AOD core. So they have Animo, who used to be called Sleep, or was it Sleepy? No, I think it was just Sleep. And he's their Lucio player. Then they have Erster, who's this phenomenal Genji player, who again also played with Mighty AOD. DM, who's the Tracer player, who also played with Mighty AOD. They had to replace Karev and Fate, who everyone I'm sure will be familiar with because they moved over to Immortals. So Fate was replaced by a guy called Republic on the main tank. Don't know why he's listed as Flex here. Michelle replaced Thorncut, who was their Diva player. Originally started as their Flex support player, moved over to Diva, ended up being replaced by a guy called Michelle. And then Jeff replaced Karev on the Flex support role. Karev obviously originally playing DPS when DM was on Flex, whatever. Basically, this is Mighty AOD with 3 new people. And Mighty AOD, as you'll remember towards the end of... In fact, I'm just going to bring that up. Mighty AOD, as you'll remember towards the end of Apex... here... So this is them as Mighty AOD. Mighty AOD, they... Wait, is it? Yeah, I don't know what the fuck this is. Oh, this was fucking Super Week. Okay, that's Super Week. That fucked me up. I was wondering what that was for ages. Okay, that's Super Week. That was their qualification for Apex Season 3. This is them in Apex Season 3. If you remember, they were in Group A with Kongdu Panthera, Lunatic High, and Rogue. I mean, clearly the most stacked group that we've ever seen in Apex. Just an unbelievable group of death that also had Mighty AOD, who, even though they lost to Rogue and Lunatic High, were able to take maps off both of them and then beat Kongdu Panthera in 5 maps, the eventual second place team that looked like they were way better than everybody else apart from perhaps AF Blue. The team, let's remember, that 4-0'd fucking Envious in the semi-finals. No, not the semi-finals, in the, whatever it was, the upper bracket of the quarterfinals or something. So this was a legit team. After they played Rogue, they actually swapped around their, they moved Karev off DPS, put Thorncut onto Diva instead of Flex support, moved Karev to the Flex support, and what was the other thing? Oh yeah, and moved DM over to DPS. So they kind of reshuffled their roster. They play against Lunatic High, they get beaten there, but after a bit more practice, they're able to actually come out and beat Kongdu Panthera. And that was kind of crazy because I think if they'd won something like 3-1, they would have gone through to the playoffs instead of Kongdu Panthera. It was kind of nuts. So this is a team that wasn't fucking around, even when they were Mighty AOD. So they kind of retooled. They came into this. They obliterated everybody to get into the competition to qualify, and then they decided to play in here because it's got an insane prize pool. I mean, look at that. That's a nuts prize pool. $275,000 for the Pacific Championship Season 2. And the competition isn't the greatest in the world. You got to say that right off the beginning. Like, some of these teams are pretty good. Like, Flash Wolves are pretty good. I'd say they're probably on the same level. They're probably a little bit worse than FaZe, I think. They're probably on the same level as a team like FNRGFE, or potentially Cloud9 or somebody like that when they were playing in Contenders EU. Maybe. Yeah, I think they're somewhere around there. So this is by no means a terrible list of teams, but they're not at the same level as some of the other regions, and certainly not at the same level as Ardiant, who, even if they are a tier 2 Korean team, shit stomped this region. They just fucking shit stomped them. They drew 2 maps and dropped 2 over the course of 14 matches. They are 42 for 2 for 2. That's fucking bananas. That's insane. So they only dropped 2 maps throughout the entirety of... They only lost 2 maps throughout the entirety of this double... I think it's a double round robin. Yeah, it's a double round robin. They lost 1 map to Flash Wolves. I don't know why I'm even bothering to find it. I'm just going to tell you. They lost 1 map to Flash Wolves, and they lost 1 map to Blank. Now, when you watch Blank play, Blank do not look that impressive. When you watch Flash Wolves, they look like they're a tier above Blank for sure. So, like, Blank are on the same level as, like, AHQ and Hong Kong Attitude for my money. They're, like, just around there. They're going to trade wins with them. They're probably going to beat AHQ most of the time, but they kind of trade wins with Hong Kong Attitude depending on how they're feeling. They're not a world-class team, in my opinion, after having seen them throughout 2 seasons of Pacific Championship. Flash Wolves could be a world-class team at the lower level of, like, they're probably within the top 15, maybe top 20 worldwide teams. That might be pushing it, given how many teams there are that are good right now. But they're somewhere around there. And Ardiant are a level above them. Like, Ardiant have not even been challenged by anybody. Ardiant just look like they're rolling their foreheads over the keyboards to be able to win most of these games in Pacific Championship. When you watch the games through the playoffs, they just demolished Blank, and actually that game Ardiant looked worse because I feel like they weren't even challenged to the point where they actually had to... It was like Blank were throwing weird shit at them, so Ardiant had to react in weird ways. Whereas then when you watch the grand final here, Flash Wolves play in kind of a more structured style, so Ardiant actually looked better in the grand final, even though they're playing against a better team. And I think you started to see some of their potential here, but they still just 4-0'd them. So it's like, Ardiant really need to play against Korean teams, or need to play against like Envious Misfits, Giganti, or Miraculous Youngster or somebody to actually show how good they are. Because at the moment, they're clearly the best team in this region. And Flash Wolves are clearly the second best team in the region. And then it gets muddy after that. So yeah, as it went through here, kind of Blank get beaten. Then they come out with a tight win over HKA, Hong Kong Attitude, who are kind of a mostly Taiwan team, but do have some Hong Kong players. Flash Wolves get the win there as well, and go on to get beaten in the grand finals. But Flash Wolves are still a reasonably good team. Blank, I don't really rate that highly. Ardiant, I think, are actually a legitimate world-class team, but at the moment, we have no real idea of how far they could go because they simply haven't been pushed. I mean, when you look at their matches, it's just unreal dominance throughout the whole of this Pacific Championship Season 2. Then you start to go back a little further. You have to go back to July for the last time that they lost a game, and that was to a Freak of Freaks. If you look at this one as well, this is when they were playing with a slightly different roster. They were playing with Dayfly instead of Jeff. Not a really large downgrade, I think, playing with Dayfly. I think that was fairly similar level of competence. This was a Freak of Freaks, though, still playing with Mano, able to play with Kalios when he was looking really good, when he still had a lot of synergy. I think Mano's probably quite an easy guy to play with. And a Freak of Freaks Blue at that point were a legitimate kind of top 4 team in the world. So Ardiant got beaten there, but some of the maps are actually pretty close. Even though it was a 4-0. So, you know, Ardiant are still kind of in there. They lost to the South Korean team. They actually won that map. I don't know why it's coming up as a loss. They actually won that game quite easily. They utterly destroyed Detonator Korea. But anyway, basically, they are a legitimate team. Now, just to touch on Apex Challengers, just at the end of this, because I know it's been a pretty long video. I might even cut it up into chunks. You're the ones that'll know, not me. Future me will have to make that decision. So I just want to touch on Apex Challengers because there's some teams that you should be keeping your eye on when they move into Apex. So basically, it's been kind of a 3-horse race throughout the entirety of Apex Challengers Season 5. And let's remind everybody that Luxury Watch Red, GC Busan, at one point Meta Athena and X6, all of these guys came from Challengers and had really good performances. One of them even completing the Royal Road, GC Busan, where they come straight out of Challenger and instantly win Apex. And I mean, Element Mystic, some people will know this team or have heard of this name because they played against South Korea a week ago or something and were able to beat them in a show match on the new meta. They've been playing the new meta for a long time. Pretty much the whole of this second half, no, the second half of this group stage and the whole of this second group stage was played on the new Mercy Diva meta. So these guys have got a lot of experience on this new meta. So if you take a look at the table, Lunatic High number 2, which is the team with Bunny, and now has Who Are You alongside him, has Alarm, Guardian, these guys, pretty solid team. They were undefeated in the first half of the season. 7 were right behind them. 7 are another team to definitely keep your eye on, and Element Mystic were behind them as well. Hadn't quite figured out all of their stuff. NC Wolves, reasonable team, not quite there. To give some reference, there's Detonator Korea, who tried to qualify for OPC and got destroyed. Here was them trying to qualify. They beat some of the Taiwanese teams. They beat Liberland Supreme, who actually ended up going through to OPC. But it was only a 3-2 game. And then they lost to Liberland Supreme, which is why the Japanese team went through. And then Liberland Supreme were the worst team in the lowest team in the Pacific Championship. And then they got shitstormed by Ardeon. And then they got shitstormed by all the rest of the Challenger teams. So Lunatic High, 7, Element Mystic are the 3 teams to keep your eye on. Now, when it went into the second group stage as well, and people had a lot of time to really nail down this new meta, Element Mystic were by far the best team. I mean, 7 got upset by them. It looked like an upset at the beginning of the season. It was this 3-2 game here. Very close between the two teams as well. 7 is still a very strong team. 7 actually looked like possibly the best team throughout the entirety of it. If you look at the whole kind of historic look of the Challengers season, but certainly towards the end, it's Element Mystic that have peaked and now look super strong. And Lunatic High 2, especially after adding Who Are You for like a Who Are You Bunny combo on their DPS, they're going to be a team to look out for. So these 3 teams are, I believe this tick means that all 4 of these teams are going through to Apex, but I imagine that other teams will go through as well, because I think, what is it, 3 or 4 of the teams are going to Owl, 3 of them have disbanded, probably more are going to disband, so that's a lot of spots in Apex that are going to be open for these Challenger teams. But certainly the big 3 to keep your eye on are Element Mystic, Lunatic High 2, who are now just called Lunatic High, and 7. So there you go. There's your overview of what's happened in autumn 2017.